Good morning, everyone. I want you to pause for a moment and think about the last time you felt butterflies in your stomach before a big presentation, or that sudden digestive discomfort during a stressful week. These aren't coincidences. They are glimpses into one of the most fascinating and rapidly evolving fields in neuroscience, the gut-brain connection. Today, we're going to explore the science behind this hidden conversation, understand why it matters for mental and physical health, and walk away with practical knowledge you can apply immediately. This is a story about how two organs, separated by distance but united by biology, are far more intertwined than we ever imagined. Here's our roadmap for the next several minutes. We'll start by understanding what the gut-brain axis actually is, not just a trendy phrase, but a concrete biological reality. Then we'll meet the three key players that make this communication possible. From there, we'll look at the evidence. What does the research actually tell us? We'll explore the mental health angle, because this is where the implications get deeply personal. Then, because good science demands honesty, we'll examine the controversies and gaps. And finally, I'll leave you with actionable steps you can take starting today. Let's begin. So what exactly is the gut-brain connection? At its core, it's a bidirectional communication network linking your central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, with your enteric nervous system, the nerve network embedded in your gut. Signals pass both ways, continuously. Your brain talks to your gut, and your gut talks back. This isn't a metaphor or a wellness trend. It's a physiological reality that researchers at institutions like Stanford and Cleveland Clinic are mapping in increasingly precise detail. Christoph Tice at Stanford describes it as a key part of interoception, how the brain builds a picture of what's happening inside your body. In the same way your eyes process photons and your ears process sound waves, your gut is feeding your brain a constant stream of data about your internal state. There are three major players in this system, and understanding each one is essential. First, the enteric nervous system, a mesh of roughly 500 million neurons lining your gastrointestinal tract from esophagus to colon. That's more neurons than your spinal cord. Second, the vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in the body, acts as the primary information highway, carrying signals in both directions at remarkable speed. And third, the gut microbiome, a vast ecosystem of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that produce neuroactive compounds, everything from serotonin precursors to short-chain fatty acids that influence brain function. These three players don't work in isolation. They form an integrated communication network that rivals anything in computing. Let's zoom in on what scientists have nicknamed the second brain. This isn't a casual label. The enteric nervous system contains every major class of neurotransmitter found in your cranial brain: dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, you name it. It can orchestrate complex digestive reflexes entirely on its own without checking in with headquarters. And here's the statistic that should make everyone sit up. Roughly 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. Serotonin, the very neurotransmitter that SSRIs like Prozac and Zoloft are designed to boost. This means that when we talk about the biological underpinnings of mood, we cannot ignore the gut. Now, this isn't a new idea that appeared overnight. The gut-brain connection was first documented in the 1840s when a physician named William Beaumont observed that his patients' emotional states directly influenced his rate of digestion, and he could watch this happen through a gastric fistula. For over a century, this observation sat on the shelf. But in the last 2 decades, advances in sequencing technology, metabolomics, and neuroimaging have transformed our understanding. We can now trace specific microbial metabolites as they cross the blood-brain barrier. We can image vagus nerve signaling in real time. The evidence is accumulating rapidly. So let's look at what it tells us. Let's visualize this as a superhighway with traffic flowing in both directions. On the left, the gut-to-brain route. Microbial metabolites, things like short-chain fatty acids, enter your bloodstream, and some cross the blood-brain barrier, directly influencing neural activity. Neurotransmitters produced in the gut, including that 90% of serotonin I mentioned, signal upward. Immune molecules carry messages about inflammation or calm. On the right, the brain-to-gut route, when you experience stress, your hypothalamus triggers cortisol release, which alters gut motility. That's the nervous stomach. Your emotional state can shift your microbiome composition within hours, not days. And the vagus nerve carries regulatory signals back down. The critical insight: neither direction is dominant. It's a true dialogue. This is where the science gets deeply personal. A 2024 review published in Frontiers in Neuroscience, one of the most comprehensive analyses to date, mapped specific microbial signaling pathways that are dysregulated in anxiety disorders. That's not correlation, that's mechanistic evidence. And then consider the Harvard study. Alzheimer's patients who consumed milk fermented with 4 probiotic strains for just 12 weeks performed significantly better on cognitive impairment tests than the control group. 12 weeks. That is not a long time for a neurodegenerative condition. Now, nobody, including the researchers, is suggesting we replace antidepressants or dementia medications with yogurt. That would be irresponsible. But the gut-brain axis is emerging as a legitimate therapeutic frontier. And for patients who don't respond to first-line treatments, this represents genuine hope. But I need to be honest with you, and good science demands this. The field has real challenges. First, human microbiome composition varies enormously. Your gut bacteria profile is shaped by your diet, your geography, your antibiotic history, your genetics, even whether you were breastfed as an infant. When baseline diversity is this high, replicating findings across populations becomes genuinely difficult. Second, the causation question. When we see altered microbiomes in depressed patients, did the depression change the gut, or did the gut contribute to the depression? Longitudinal studies are starting to tease this apart, but we're not there yet. And third, precise mechanisms. We know these signals travel, but the exact routes and receptors for many microbial metabolites remain partially understood. This isn't a weakness of the field, it's the nature of cutting-edge science. But it means we should treat bold claims with healthy skepticism. So what can you actually do with all of this? Let me give you 4 evidence-informed steps that don't require a medical degree or an expensive supplement regimen. Step 1, eat fermented foods daily. Yogurt with live cultures, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso. Dietary diversity is the single strongest predictor of microbial diversity. Step 2, if you choose a probiotic supplement, look for specific strains with clinical evidence: Lactobacillus rhamnosus for stress resilience, Bifidobacterium longum for mood and cognitive clarity, Lactobacillus helveticus for anxiety. Generic acidophilus won't cut it. Step 3, manage stress actively because cortisol is one of the fastest disruptors of gut barrier integrity. Meditation and aerobic exercise are both well documented. Step 4, don't forget prebiotics, the fiber that feeds your beneficial bacteria. Vegetables, legumes, whole grains. These 4 steps aren't a guarantee, but they're the closest thing we have to a gut-brain health protocol grounded in real evidence. And the beauty is, they cost almost nothing and have zero downside. Thank you.